the main thing we care about is policy. We care about that more, more than everybody wants to serve. Everybody wants to give back to the community. We wouldn't be here unless we really just wanted for pure raw power, right? Which I don't think most local folks really want. I think they will. And so what I'd like you to do is start out with just a minute on what your key policy issues are and what you bring to the table for the policy. I don't need a whole resume right now. I may ask you guys for a resume and just send an email to me. But let's start with you, Dan. I mean, what are your policy issues?
I have many, but the bottom line, it first and foremost comes with just the way the system is operating right now, at least locally. Ideally, we want the city council to receive input from the community, the people that we represent, and then from that instruct our staff to work on issues, come with information, research on those issues, and provide something for us to vote on to create policy. Right now, it's been that staff is actually doing that, and people's voice is not being heard. So that's a fundamental change that needs to happen. The people need to be represented, and so that the policy is coming down the path correctly, which is from the people to the council to the staff, and then we vote, and then it's enacted. So there's a fundamental problem that is not the case in San Leandro, and so that would be one of the first things to make sure that.
Do you think it's going the other way, is what you're saying?
It is going the other way. It is staff. It's coming down from the federal or state or staff. God knows where it's coming from.
Can you give me a specific example?
I can give you a couple.
Give me one.
Okay.
Your best one.
So there's an entertainment ban that is starting to be proposed in San Leandro, where the chief of police, a non-elected official, is going to trying to be given the power to decide which restaurant or venue, whether you have a conditional use permit or if you have grandfather or vested rights, you will now lose those things and have to get a permit from the police department. Now, normally those things you would have the community crying about it or having incidences, big problem happening, and then the council would direct staff saying, we've got this problem, we need to regulate entertainment, and then it goes to committees and from.
So, policy often comes from staff because they're the ones who run the city and see the problems and the issues. That's not unusual.
It's unusual for law to be. If that's not unusual, it's a fundamental problem.
Well, I don't know. I've been covering local government for 32 years. This doesn't seem that abnormal to me.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So I understand.
Right.
So you feel it's, regardless of how you feel, the point is the people are upset that the issues and policies not arising from them and the council. And so entertainment ban is starting to be pushed through, and the council has never initiated that process. It came from the police chief, and it came from staff and the legal team. And by the way, it came from a special fund. So that means that the city paid money to the legal team that was never authorized to be spent to start creating this legislation. While we have chicken and bee issue that has been authorized, it has been wanted by the people, authorized by the council, and we've waited over a year now for that policy to be created. But with
which one? I'm sorry.
The chicken and bee issue, in other words, it's been basically illegal to have chickens and bees. Yet the council has voted, has heard what the people wanted, has said yes, we want it, has instructed staff to create legislation.
So your issue is policy, process.
It's process and how the policy is being done in priorities.
Are there other issues?
There are many.
Okay.
Would you like?
Just give me the list of the key issues you see.
We're having selective enforcement when it comes to businesses. Same rules for everyone, yet there's some selective enforcement when it comes to planning and zoning department. I have businesses in town who have A-frames. I won't say the company's name, but it's a local florist, big one in town. And they put out A-frames that say, hey, flowers and blah, blah, blah. Well, community enforcement comes by and says, hey, you can't have these A-frames, it's illegal. And so the business owner has to remove those, right? Because they can't say, we're going to ticket you.
Sandwich signs.
Correct, sandwich signs. Yet, throughout the city on the weekend, there's sandwich signs, there's people washing cars, there's people conducting business without business licenses, who don't even have a storefront yet, they've got their signs out there, or they're doing.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. I don't mean to cut you off,
right.
but I want to make this efficient and get at the issue, and just see. Are those the biggest issues you have?
No, there
okay, what's the biggest issue you have? The most significant issue?
Well, it covers all those things, but it's demanding the accountability and transparency from our local government and all the departments. I think that we, the taxpayers, we the people, are the ones flipping the bill. We're the ones that the burden is put on us, and I believe that we should at least know what's being done and how it's being done. It should be open and transparent.
Okay.
Even if they're going to do something that some may be against, at least they're honest and upfront about it, opposed to trying to push agendas behind closed doors and sneaking things by, instead of just simply saying this is what it is and this is why we're doing it. And so there's a lot of smoke screens going on, at least in our city.
Okay. Morgan?
So my number one issue is economic development and budget sustainability. Right now, the city of San Leandro has a structural deficit because of its pension situation. We pay 100% of the employee contribution in addition to our own contribution. So what the council did was to pass Measure Z, which is a sales tax, it's a temporary sales tax, which is being completely eaten up by unfunded pension liability. So my number one issue is to get our employee groups to agree to start contributing to their portion of the contribution. We're not going to be able to restore the services that our community deserves and demands. We're not going to be able to restore police services, library services, all the things that all three of us want to see restored until we get that fundamental structural problem addressed. And the other major issue we have at our city council is it lacks a cohesive vision. There's a lot of 3-4 votes going on up there, and I believe people are voting not on the merits of the issue, but they're voting on who is proposing the issue, who is the proponent of the issue. And this is stymieing staff. This is not giving staff a mandate. Staff's job is to execute the vision set by the council.
So you're suggesting there's favoritism, right?
No, what I'm suggesting is that there is no leader on the council right now, the mayor included, who is working to bring all 7 members together with a shared vision so that there is a clear mandate for staff to go forward. And so we're stagnating. And this is really dangerous right now. Some great things have happened recently. We have the Kaiser Hospital coming online. That's fantastic for us. We have Lit San Leandro. This fiber optic loop is going to change, has the potential to change the trajectory of our city. But until we have a council that understands this opportunity and shares the same vision as to what this can bring to our city, we're going to lose it. We risk losing it. We can have a bunch of data centers come into our community. That's not going to boost our economy. We want high-tech companies with lots of employees that are bringing in payroll taxes that are going out to lunch. For every high-tech job, they say there's 5 ancillary jobs. Well, if it's just a bunch of data storage facilities, that's not going to happen. So the city council needs to come together and decide what are we going to do to make sure that we control the development, and that as business comes to San Leandro and as business succeeds, San Leandro succeeds too.
So the major issues are the budget and using what we have toward a means toward an end. Right now, we had horrible budget issues because of, number one, the state coming in and taking our money, the redevelopment money all being taken and then having to go through the oversight board. And we had projects that were waiting, that were shovel ready and ready to go, and then everything being put on hold. Right now, we have to find a mechanism in order to fund our projects. We've gone to the federal government. We've gone about, when we did Measure Z, we made sure that the money would not have to go through the state and be taken from us and would go directly to our city. We have an upcoming Measure B that within the writing of Measure B, we wrote San Leandro into the language of Measure B so that it would make sure that our roads and our infrastructure...
You're talking about B1?
Yes, B1. I'm sorry, B1. Our roads and our infrastructure would be detailed so that we wouldn't be overlooked. We've done a lot of
There's
things.
something there for everybody, right? It's
There
kind of
is
candy
actually
stores.
San Leandro,
Yeah.
our city, is written into the language so that it won't be just a bold overstroke for everyone. It actually will detail our city out, and we'll make sure that we'll get funding. Funding's huge. Getting our redevelopment together is huge. We have 2 projects for transit-oriented development. One, we have 2 BART stations in San Leandro, the Big Fair BART and the downtown BART. We've already put out the whole development project for the downtown San Leandro BART station, and bringing in and having that project succeed and be completed will bring numerous people to our downtown, will begin to have people spending money in San Leandro. And the whole idea of transit-oriented development is to get people out of their cars and walking through San Leandro and spending money in San Leandro. And
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
You started out the conversation by talking about the RDA. Is that the sole source of your financial problems?
No,
what are the sources of your financial problems?
financially, our financial problems. Well, Morgan hit on the pension reform. Pension reform's huge, but that is I believe in pension reform, but I believe in allowing it to be negotiated through our labor negotiations, which are happening right now. There are labor negotiations going with all of our contracts and all of our unions right now.
You came on the council in
2008.
Okay. So you inherited these contracts.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
And we're making headway. I mean, I don't think anyone believes that we can continue with 100% of our employees of our policemen and our firemen being paid and not putting into their pensions.
What should they be putting in?
A percentage.
What kind of percentage?
I think in order for us to see some some budget stability, I would say that it would be important to have both at least 40%.
40% of what?
40% of their of the pension. I'm sorry. We're talking about the pensions.
Right.
Right. So if they put in and we match it, so we do 60 and they do 40 for their pensions.
Okay, so give me a sense of how you see those numbers as a percentage of payroll. 40, 60. What that would mean.
What that would mean would be that we would lower our deficit. Right now we are in a deficit because every year when we keep putting money into the pensions, we're losing money.
Okay, so let me see if I've got this right, and I just want to make sure I have the numbers right.
Okay.
My recollection is your contributions are somewhere around 35% of payroll for your police. Is that right? I'm trying to remember.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying that they should be paying roughly about 15% of payroll toward their pensions?
15% of payroll. Yes. No, that doesn't. You're saying
You said that the amount should be 40%, and I asked 40% of what?
Right.
40% of what?
40% of the contribution into the pension.
Okay, there's an employer share, there's an employee share.
Right.
Right now, how's it work?
Right now, we pay the total pension.
Total pension.
Right.
That total pension amount works out to what?
Oh, I don't have that figure.
What does it work out to per percentage of payroll?
I don't have that figure.
Do you have a sense of that?
I don't have the total number, no.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think that you start out with, well, no, I'm going to say no. I don't know the total number.
Okay.
No.
Do you have any idea?
I know it's too much.
I know it's, what I know is
I
that
don't.
it's
I don't
20% of our overall general fund.
Okay.
That's the figure I'm familiar with. I would
20
expect my council member to know.
We're supposed to have.
I do want to.
I don't know what it is per each.
I can tell you what it is for the San Leandro schools.
Okay.
Because, but what I
Yeah,
do
but
want
San
to...
Leandro schools are STIRS, it's a whole different.
Right, but I know
Right,
the pension
right,
contribution
right,
of
I
the
understand.
body that I am
Right,
a trustee
get
over.
you.
I did want to make a correction, though, that there was she did not inherit this most recent contract. There was a contract in 2010.
That's right.
And Councilwoman Reed abstained from voting on that contract, and my opinion of abstentions is you should only abstain when you have a material conflict of interest or you legitimately feel you did not receive enough information to take a vote. And I find it hard to believe that a city council member didn't have enough information on one of the biggest issues we vote on, which is our employee bargaining unit contracts.
Let me just check here.
But that could also be staff too. The staff is notorious for not providing our council or any of the committees, not defending anyone, I'm just pointing it out there, that they're notorious for delivering papers in the hands an hour or two before the
What
meeting.
happened in 2010? I don't have that in my list. What happened in 2010?
You asking the city
Either-
council member?
either-
You're the one that brought it up.
In
I mean,
2000?
was there a 2010 vote?
Yes.
Was there a 2010
Yes, there
vote?
was.
What was it not?
The vote on the budget?
No. You're
No,
talking
it was
about
on
contract
employee
vote.
contracts.
Was there a contract vote in 2010?
Right, we just rolled it.
You rolled the contract in
Yeah.
2010. Okay. And you abstained? Yes? No?
I abstained from one vote in the whole 4 years, and so I didn't abstain from that vote. So
How did you
I'm
vote
not
on the
understanding.
roll?
I'm not understanding.
How did you vote on rolling
We
that
agreed to
contract?
roll the contract.
Okay, and you agreed to roll the contract because?
We agreed to roll the contract because we didn't have. We decided that they weren't taking any increase in their pay. We continued furlough days, and we increased, and they were agreeable to that. We also didn't have a finance director at the time, and we had an outgoing city manager. So we agreed to roll the contract.
If either of you want to send me minutes from that meeting, I'm happy to look at it.
Yep.
Sure.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But send it to me this afternoon. Okay.
Do you have a card?
Yeah, I'll give it to you. Okay, thank you for that. But what I'm trying to, I'm trying to understand this more fundamental issue here, which is, which is, what's the, you both, at least you two both talk about pensions being important here, important issue. And I'm trying to understand my recollection, and I've got my note, it's in my email notes that I can't access right this second, but I can get in a second. But my recollection is your typically pensions are expressed as percentage of payroll.
So that 35% that are you talking about total salary driven costs or pensions in particular?
Pensions in particular.
Okay. So
Okay, and I believe that's only the employer share. I would have to go back and double check that, and I'm doing this from memory, so I may be off. It may be a combined employer-employee share, but right now it's all being paid by the employer. My question to you, and typically the way the split is discussed, is how that percentage of payroll is divided between employer and employee. Do either of you or any of you know what the standard is for police?
I don't know. I know it's been bargained recently in Pleasant Hill differently,
Okay.
where they're increasing 6%. So that's
And
why.
you're familiar with Pleasant Hill in particular, because
I was reading how different
Okay,
localities are
right,
doing
okay,
it,
okay.
right? And Hayward is doing the same thing. And I'm shocked actually, and to hear that 35% of it's 35% is salary driven, is pension driven.
Let's just see if we can get the number.
I mean, and the fact that we're paying 100% of it. I believe that there's an obligation for a city to contribute to an employee's pension. There's no question about it. These employees work hard for a long period of time and earn a pension. But just like you and I contribute to our retirement, we should be asking our city employees to do the same.
So,
And there was an opportunity to do that in 2010 when we had these massive deficits.
Our
And it
city
didn't
employees
happen.
have not taken a raise or a cost of living raise for 6 years,
Yeah.
and they've had furlough
And
days.
and I
And
understand
so
that,
I think
but
that's something to take into consideration,
And
that our employees are giving back to our city in that they are eating it and not and taking off and their retirement gets reflected, because when you take furlough days, it lowers your retirement input, and so it's been quite a burden. We've also reduced our workforce by 74 employees in the city. The thing about the police department is that currently we have, and we're staffed at 90, but we have 7 people out on workman's comp.
Ursula, but okay, I hear all that, but here, I'll be blunt with you guys,
Sure.
okay? This is, if you've read our editorials on other issues, on other jurisdictions, if you've read our editorials in general, there's probably no issue that we're more concerned about than city finances and how retirement benefits are driving cities off over the cliff.
Okay.
Okay, you guys have a projected budget deficit.
True.
Okay,
Mhm.
and that's before you even address this issue.
Mhm.
Okay, and I guess I'd like to understand what your understanding of the implications of this are. Do you realize you have an unfunded liability?
Mhm.
Do you know how much your unfunded liability is?
I know that we try to have a 20%
Cushion.
a cushion, but
That has nothing to do with
I know
retirement unfunded liability.
right. But what we do is we try to have pockets of money that support in case we need for
Okay,
liabilities.
give me the scale of that versus the scale of your unfunded liability.
The scale of that versus the unfunded liability, it's decreasing. So I mean, we're not going to be able to continue to keep it. We've had it, and we've had the funding there, and now we're cutting into that funding.
Marty, do you have any sense of the numbers?
Well, I'll tell you what. I've got 2 responses. One is, when you're facing this budget cliff, I don't understand why you would vote to give $100,000 parting gifts to employees that you're laying off. That was couched as a savings. Well, no, because it's those kind of votes that indicate to me that people don't understand.
I hear what you're saying, but I want to stay macro.
My familiarity with the city retirement budget is not as clear as I would expect my council members. So I'm going to talk about what I've done on the school district, if that's okay. Okay. So we've had 4 years of declining revenue because of Sacramento. We have had, with my leadership, 4 years of balanced budget, and we balanced 2 years out too. And that is because we've been able to negotiate successfully with our employee groups in a concessionary atmosphere. We avoided impasse for 4 years. We made hard decisions nobody wanted to make. Nobody wanted to raise class size. Nobody wanted to cut programs. The first thing we did was cut administration by 12%. These are the kind of hard decisions that I've been making for the past 4 years that our city council has not been making. The 72 employees that they're down is from attrition. It's not that they were laid off. It was from attrition. The fact is that our council didn't want to make the decisions, the hard decisions, failed to come to an agreement, a long-term agreement with the bargaining units to address the problem, and so they put forth a sales tax, temporary sales tax, to save these things, which is just kicking the can down the road. We haven't seen, we saw that our services weren't further reduced because of the sales tax, but we haven't seen our services restored because of the sales tax. Then they're already talking about renewing it. We have to get our financial house in order, and to do that, you've got to make the really tough decisions. And I just don't see that happening. What I see is decision after decision of, we'll give we're sorry we're laying you off, here's $100,000. Another example, and it's a small example, it's only $30,000, but they voted to give a waive the $30,000 transfer, real estate transfer tax fee to Kaiser. Well, like Kaiser was going to stop that development over $30,000? No, but $30,000 for our libraries is pretty significant.
Well, let me ask you folks. Dan, do you have a sense, if I asked you what the unfunded liability is for retirement, would you have any idea what that meant?
Yes, but what I want to talk about, though, honestly, is the fact that we need to fundamentally find out who. We talk about these employees leaving. We lost 74, yet our budget hasn't. It's higher. It's going up. There needs to be a fundamental examination of what staff, who is doing what resources, who's actually doing the job, who's just sitting there collecting the money. We need to see. We have nothing in place right now to know who's doing their damn job. And what's important to know is who's doing their job, who's costing us money, who's making the bad decisions. Luke Sims just resigned. That was the community development director for a long time. And when you really trace a lot of our liabilities, they go back to bad decisions by planning and Luke Sims being their boss. So the thing is who is auditing our staff? Although you say earlier that staff makes the policies and do all these things, but who's auditing them? Who knows they're doing their job? So my question to you is, can you define for me what an unfunded liability is? Well, here's what I was going to get to. Is the fact is our city is nowhere near broke. When you look at the comprehensive annual financial report, which no one does because everyone talks about the city budget, it's a 180-page document that I was the first to bring to even the council's attention. When you say your city's nowhere near broke, what do you mean? We have almost a $500 million in assets. And the comprehensive annual financial report is where we find out where those things are, where we're receiving returns on investments. Where are those $500 million in assets? Are you talking about their capital assets? I am talking about properties owned, investments.
Are there some you would suggest should be sold?
I think that it needs to seriously be looked at to decide what could be leased. Well, what could be leased, what could be sold. And it's a very, it's not so complex, but it's more than just me. So but it's shining a light on the fact that we're not broke. Yes, we are spending too much money, on these retirement packages, without a doubt. As a small business owner, as the economy has gotten worse, trust me, I've had to tighten my belt, and it should be acceptable. And I've spoke to the city employees, and they are open to putting some money towards their pensions, but they want us to know as well that they haven't received any pay increases over the last 5 years, and we can go down all this stuff. But the bottom line is this: the resources exist. We're not connecting dots, and we're not taking advantage of our resources, and we're not standing strong and firm, making strong decisions. The council and a lot of the folks aren't leading and actually saying, look it, I need to, here's a threshold, here's where I see staff, I need to see this productivity. And if they're not even, we have no way to evaluate that we're even getting it.
I'm going to come back to my question. Okay. Define an unfunded liability.
Unfunded liability is basically like the pension. So we project the budget. We see, here's our budget, and I'm projecting 5 years down the road that we're going to be in the hole millions of dollars because we don't have the income coming in to pay for those salaries or other city services.
Can you define retirement unfunded liability?
Yeah, that's if a liability is something that we are not sure of. We don't know if it could happen. We could be we could be sued. We could have a loss in. We could take a stock market. Anything could happen. That's a liability. And if we don't have the funds on reserve to cover it, then it's an unfunded liability. One of the things that I want to do.
Hold on, can you find out?
Well, so CalPERS is the retirement system. It's based in investments. When those investments do not materialize as to what's promised to the employees for their pension, then CalPERS comes back to the city and say, you know what, you've got to pony up cash so we can make good on these pensions that we've promised. Right? So that's what the critical issue is. We don't know how the stock market's going to perform. We've made these promises to employees. CalPERS then comes to the cities to make good on the promises. That's an unknown. That could be, it will outpace any kind of growth we will have. And that's why we have to start structurally with, changing what we promise and asking employees to share in the risk.
One other way to go about this and to try to think outside of the box of what the city has been doing is that our city right now is putting our funds into a bank that only gives us 0.03% interest. What we'd like to do is take the funding from, take pockets of funding from this bank, put it into local banks, get a higher percentage, a higher rate back on our funds to try to increase our funding.
And you think that's going to solve your budget problems?
It's not going to solve it, but it will do a couple of things. It'll give back to, it'll put funding into local banks. It'll say that, you know, we trust and we want to put our money from the city into the local, and it'll also give us a higher interest rate of return on our funds.
What if I said that the amount of money you're talking about, difference, pales in comparison to the issue that Morgan's raising?
I understand the issues that Morgan's raising. The issues are there. The issues are there everywhere. There's issues, I mean, when it comes to money and it comes to funding, I mean, every single one of us are going to have to deal with it, not just at a city level. I mean, PERS is statewide. Everybody's going to get hit by PERS. Everybody's going to get hit by pension reform. It's coming. It's on the ballot. It's something the state's already told us it's going to happen to us.
It's on the ballot?
What I mean is, it's already said that it's going to happen in 2017. The pension reform's coming. We can't run away from it. We can't run away from.
Can you explain to me how it's going to help you in 2017?
It's not going to help. Nobody. And I'm not saying anything's helping. I'm saying that we have to deal with it. We
So
have to deal with PERS going up. We have to deal with.
How would you deal with it?
No, I'm saying as individuals, not just at a city level. But as individuals, we all have to deal with our own pensions, our own retirements.
But I'm asking you as a city official.
Correct.
How are you going to deal with it?
That's when we have to make sure that our unfunded liabilities stay where they're at. The problem we have is that the way that we've dealt with it is that we've passed measures, we've put the money back on the backs of the community members, and we realize this. This is what we did because we were in a pinch as far as, and our community stepped up. They did. They stepped up and they agreed.
That's when we have to make sure our unfunded liabilities stay where they're at. What do you mean by that? And how is that done?
Oh, you're repeating what?
Right. I'm trying to understand
right.
what you meant by that.
Correct. What I'm saying is that.
What does that mean in practical terms?
Okay. Instead of us continually going into a deficit, keeping our budget stable. Right now, our budget is stable. It's in the black, but we can foresee going into the red. The Measure Z was only for 7 years, and that's what we told the voters. It was 7 years, and the hope was that within that time we would be able to come out of it and figure out a way where we could fund and we didn't have to go into tax dollars.
So, do you sense 7 years down the line where you might go? What should be done?
I think it's going to be a very hard. There's a lot going on that's asking for tax dollars from our citizens right now. We want to pass Measure B1. We want to pass the local Measure L. That's for the schools. We have a lot of things that are going to ask our citizens to fund.
Okay, but my question was, I think I heard you say, correct me if I'm wrong, that 7 years down the line, Z goes away.
It does.
Right?
It does.
And I thought I heard you say you have to be prepared for that.
Correct.
Okay, so my question was, what does that preparation entail?
It entails doing a detailed budget, in-depth. So we have a brand new finance director. We've had 3 since this has gone through. We had one for maybe 5 months. She left. She went to Halo.
Okay, but from a policy perspective,
consistency.
What do you see are the things that need to happen?
We need to see where our money is going. We need to figure out where the largest amounts of money are going and how we can rejuvenate the budget, make sure that we keep economic development happening so we have money coming into the city, tax dollars being spent in the city, in order to keep the funding alive. When we did Measure Z, it was a sales tax. And a sales tax means that we can't make money unless people are buying things.
I've got a question for you, Dan.
No, well, I'm sorry. We're running short of time.
Okay.
So so do you can you address what you see needs to be done before Measure Z runs out?
We need to have a thriving business, entertainment, family. We need to change the perception of San Leandro. We are centrally located. We have all the resources. We have wonderful amenities. We need people to come there to live, shop, and bring their friends and family. So we need to create San Leandro. It has all the assets, historically and others, to make our city a destination location to where we can have an influx of not just the money of San Leandrians, but also from the surrounding cities.
If I'm correct, when Measure Z runs out, you lose about $3 million a year.
And
do you have a sense of what needs to be done for that?
Sure. Chris Crow and myself have been looking at revenue streams. You'll probably meet with him later today. There's everything from adjusting the business license because there's a lack of taxation on parking, so to speak, or business license fees that address that. There is, there's potential with, helping to generate the nightlife. Look, we don't have a restaurant open past 10 o'clock and past 9 o'clock really in San Leandro to stop serving. So I think once we start creating this lively nightlife, taking advantage of bringing people to town, connecting the dots for folks. We have all these assets that should be enticing people to come and spend their money, and also getting investments. It's exactly what they've done here at the Fox. It's what they've done over in Redwood City.
Oakland's not exactly a model for school responsibility.
It's not. I don't agree or disagree, but they have in certain areas have been capable of turning around neighborhoods and creating economic.
And you do realize they are going off a financial cliff
because they took too much money. $90 million for the Fox. I mean, we can go down the list. There's those things.
Okay, so do you have any sense of where you might come up with $3 million?
Well, yeah. Well, one of them is adjusting the business license fees to address the large parking facilities that are not paying their share. There are other revenue streams. As a city, we need to stop giving away the ship like with Kaiser. I personally think it's great they're there, but how ridiculous that we've given up millions of dollars, and possibly more than just millions, could be tens of millions of dollars in money, financial money that could have been coming to the city from that project. We're the best place for it, regardless if we gave them the deals or not. So we need to start making proper decisions on who to give breaks to and who not to. And at this time, we're not in a position to give breaks. We need to encourage them and sell them on our assets and who we are and what we're planning to do, opposed to the fact that we're giving away the horse and the cart and don't pay us nothing. Come move in here, use our resources, and we'll figure it out. Well, we haven't figured it out.
Okay, Morgan, do you have a sense of what you'd like to do?
Well,
start closing that $3 million.
That $3 million doesn't seem like a lot, really, to me. Because I think there's bigger issues. It doesn't reflect the true cliff that we're facing, which is the pension. So it's just a part of what needs to be the gap that needs to be filled. In fact, they have $5 million of unanticipated revenue from last year, so $3 million does not scare me.
Well, I can say
the pension scares
me. Sorry.
The unfunded pension scares me. So, we could bridge that $3 million gap just by asking our employees to start contributing a few percent to their own contribution. That would cover that. What we really need to do is make sure that we don't miss out on this opportunity that this fiber loop is bringing to us. It's an amazing opportunity, but it's short term because it won't be long before other communities are having similar loops put into their conduit. And we want to make sure that businesses come now and invest and stay in San Leandro. It's payroll taxes that's going to be boosting our economy. It's not business license fees. That is a big part of it, but payroll, it's people coming, earning money in our community, spending money in our community. This loop is changing everything. We were talking about having a marina, having a conference center at a marina. Now we can use a small amount of area to generate a lot more money with this fiber than a conference center ever would. We have to reevaluate all of our development plans because of this, I believe. And I don't think that our council fully understands the enormity of the opportunity. And it was a gift. It was a pure gift to our city. And we can't blow it.
So, Morgan, do you have a sense, and I'm going to come back to this question one more time for all of you. Do you have a sense of what you think the share is that the employees should be kicking in?
I don't want to say a particular number because I don't know what's, until you have the facts, you shouldn't really go on record saying a particular number. I know at the school district, there's 13% goes into their pension.
That sounds about right.
Right? 5 to 7% seems a pretty reasonable thing to ask employees to contribute into their pension. And then the city making up the remainder. But if it's 35%, holy smokes. I'm just shocked.
I'll get the full number for you guys.
Yeah.
You guys can get the number yourself.
Yeah.
It's probably not far from that. Ursula, do you have a sense?
A sense of what we should do or what?
And how much the employees should be kicking in?
I would say that it should be I think it should be something that is a gradual. I think right now, because our employees have not gotten raises in 6 years, if we are to start asking them to not only not get a raise but kick in, a quality of life is gonna.
Do you share Morgan's? Morgan said that she's much more, that the unfunded pension scares her. Does it scare you?
Of course it does.
Okay, how does it scare you?
It scares me because what happens is if we continue at this rate, we don't have the budget or the funding to continue to pay it. And we watched some. I'm trying to think of the name of the California. I'm losing. Social services business go down because of the fact that they had no money coming in and they had employers and they couldn't make budget and they couldn't make payroll. We don't ever want to be in a place where we have people working and trying to feed their families and we can't pay them their salaries. So as it is, and you don't have.
Do you see a trade-off between your earlier comment if you don't want to ask the employees to pay too much, but down the line if you don't ask them to pay too much, pay more, you're not going to be able to pay them at all?
This is the thing. If you come into an organization and you know going into an organization what the organization is going to ask of you, that's one thing. If you're in the organization and you've signed a contract and you believe you know what you can plan out your future because you know what you're going to get, correct? There's two different things. That's why I say there should be some type of a gradual, or for the people that are in already, or a two-tiered system, or a system where when people come into an organization, they know what they're getting. You don't go and take a job and say, oh, I'll take it and I don't know what the salary is and I don't know what I'm going to get. You take it knowing the whole package before you walk in the door.
Morgan seems to know her percentage of payroll on her employees.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah. Do you have a sense on yours?
I don't have a sense on mine.
Okay.
I haven't researched that. I haven't. On the city council, one thing that's happened is that, and this is one thing that we're moving toward changing, which I have heard my two opponents mention. We work in committees. We work in segments. Currently, the mayor and the vice mayor place the council members on the committees. I've never been placed on the finance committee or the committees that deal with money or how the budget's made. We are changing that because we have brought up to our mayor and our vice mayor that this segregates our council and breaks it up. We now want to stop committees and have everything come to work sessions so that all of us hear all of the information, because just like Mr. Dillman said, some information is not given to all of us. We get it after. And so one thing that has to happen on our council is that all of us here, it's all brought to the community in work sessions formats, and that was just voted on Monday night. So it's something that I understand, I agree when you ask me the question and you say, well, Morgan knows about her school district. We haven't been doing things always in the right way, and it's noticeable, and I understand that. I'm the first to say we've had 3-4 votes, we've had 5-2 votes, because half of the council knows what's going on and the other half doesn't. So there is some communication problems. That's something that in the next 4 years and in the next group really needs to be a focus point.
Dan, finally, do you have a sense on the unfunded liability of what it should be?
Well, I have a sense of what I feel is fair.
What's fair?
I first believe, because they haven't received raises, that it should be multi-tiered. We don't hit them right at one time, but I think we should be getting up to probably a 10%, but it's multi-tiered. We also need to consider that they either need some raises as well, but I think that's fair. But I want to throw in that I have a way to get $3 million right off the bat, and that's by changing our legal team.
Well, we're really out of time. I don't mean
got it. No problem.
I don't mean
multi-tiered pension up to 10%. I think is totally fair, because one thing I want to say about this is, and it's got to be sold properly, it's an investment in their future. See, one thing that is kind of, it's like we're taking it away from them. No, you know what? You're investing in your future, and so that's a perspective that needs to be sold, because we're not just taking it from them. We're asking them to invest in themselves, and we are too. And so it's a two-way street, and it needs to be sold properly.
Real quickly. We're going to wrap this in 1 minute.
No, I understand. The problem is Measure Z, all the money was gobbled up by pension. All of our increase in growth is going to be gobbled up by pension unless we do something. And it really matters, because I was speaking with Wilma Chan about our hospital is going to close down. San Leandro Hospital, the only full-service hospital in San Leandro, the only full-service 24-hour emergency room. I said, what do we need to keep it open? And she looked at me and she said, Morgan, if San Leandro could come up with $1 million a year, I think we could keep it open. This is what she told me. $1 million isn't a lot of money, in my opinion, when you're dealing with a budget like that. You consider the amount of community benefit that gives. But boy, that'll get sucked up by that pension liability before you can blink, unless we do something.
Okay, let me just give you guys just so you know the answer to the questions. Okay, I will check the exact numbers. If you send me an email, I'll send it back to you. But basically, I think it's in the neighborhood somewhere between around 35%. 35%. Your unfunded liability represents the amount that you should have in the bank today that you don't have. Not in the future, but today. You are short right now about $70 million. At least, conservatively. At least that much. That represents at least roughly 2.5 years of payroll. That is a debt that you will be paying off for years and years and years. It will be squeezing out your funds to pay for other things.
So one of us needs to call the Federal Bank Reserve and have them send a check.
Well, I just,
I mean, it's interesting. Our school district is $4 million.
I just don't see why you guys,
yeah.
This should be setting up one.
It is.
Thank you very much, folks. I appreciate it.